So today was a big media day. After the cabinet appointments that were announced yesterday, well, then all those cabinet members took to the Hill and were swarmed by reporters all over the place on Parliament Hill. And my friends, it looks like the Liberal caucus meetings probably need to start because none of them were speaking the same language. None of them were talking the same thing. None of them were on the same page with what even Mark Carney said yesterday in his press conference or even what he mentioned on Vashti Kapel's show last night. It was a gong show. It looks like the inmates are already running the asylum of the Liberal Party and they haven't even started Parliament yet. Oh, wouldn't want to be in that party right now. It's looking a little rough. You have Mark Carney's new housing minister saying some weird things. You have Guilbeault saying, I don't know about these pipelines. And then you have Jolie saying, I'm going to protect these jobs. And, well, those jobs are not being protected. It's getting wild up in here. But before we get into it, take the time to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the show, helps us to grow, helps bring another perspective to the conversation that the mainstream media simply isn't giving you. Now let's get into the show. So you have Mark Carney here, doing his thing, talking at his press conference yesterday, and it was asked about his new housing minister, who has done, quite frankly, a terrible job when he was mayor of Vancouver on the terms of housing. As soon as he took over in Vancouver, housing skyrocketed as he was mayor. It was ugly. It wasn't looking good in Vancouver. It was the visual beginning of how bad real estate prices were starting to get here in Canada. And so, with that appointment, well, your reporter had a legitimate question of Mark Carney, and well, again, let's remind you, we watched this morning. Well, I'll remind you again. This was the question. And again, this was Carney's answer.
Follow up. When Gregor Robertson was Vancouver mayor, the price of buying a house increased by 179% in one of the most expensive markets in Canada. Why do you think someone with this track record should oversee the housing file? Is this a signal from you that you don't think housing prices should go down?
You would be very hard pressed to make that conclusion from everything I've said and what our priorities are. We have a strong view on housing, a very clear policy, a policy developed with a number of members of the team, including with Mr. Robertson, and I'm thrilled that he is in the new role because he brings the type of experience that we need to tackle some aspects of this problem. One of them is how the federal government can help get municipal costs and municipal regulation costs down and regulation out of the way so that more houses can be built. Ultimately, a housing crisis, and it is a crisis, is ultimately solved by supply.
Remember Poilievre was saying, you know, the way you solve the housing crisis is increasing supply, and the Liberals and Carney poo-pooed the idea, saying that was just irresponsible. That's not how you actually deal with it. Well, here we are. He's admitting it. And that's why he says, well, Gregor Robertson, he's the reason why we need to bring him in. He has experience in doing this. Yeah, he's had experience in skyrocketing housing prices, but let's not go there at the moment. Here was the thing. Is he said, you'll be hard-pressed based on what I've said in the campaign, based on what I've said previously, that I don't believe housing prices should come down. So I brought in the guy who knows only one thing and how to make housing prices go up. And this was the interesting thing, is he admitted this. He said this at his press conference yesterday. He wants to see housing prices go down. And, well, Gregor Robertson, well, yeah, interviewed today on Parliament Hill, and, well, this was his answer.
Affordable housing.
Do you think home prices need to go down?
No, I think that we need to deliver more supply, make sure the market is stable. It's a huge part of our economy. We need to be delivering more affordable housing. The government of Canada has not been building affordable housing since the 90s, and we've created a huge shortage across Canada. That's where the big need is right now, and I'm very encouraged that the Prime Minister and our commitment right now in government is to double construction and focus on the affordable side.
How realistic do you think?
Affordable housing.
Do you think home prices need to go down?
So if you didn't catch that, the reporter asked, do you believe housing prices need to go down? He says, no, we just need to add more supply. We need to make sure things stay stable, meaning things need to remain the same. Because if housing prices go down, that means the market is unstable. And that is what is concerning about this answer. You have Mark Carney says, yeah, you'd be hard pressed. No, housing prices need to come down. Then his actual Gregor Robertson, he appointed to be Minister of Housing, says, nah, actually, housing prices should be about the same. We just need to introduce more supply. I mean, I don't know if you can get one without the other. You introduce more supply, well, then you'll be able to see prices come down. No, they need to remain stable. They need to keep the housing equity going. And this was really funny. As I said, the inmates running the asylum, or they need to have a caucus meeting very soon to get their messaging together, because this looked awful. The optics of this are terrible. Carney says one thing, he says another. What's it going to be? Housing affordability is a huge issue in this country because it was created by 10 years of the Liberals. And it looks like they want to keep the party going without saying that they're keeping the party going. And then we move on, which I thought was fascinating. Guilbeault popped in. And again, remember the questions, the thoughts. Carney said we need to build pipelines. Carney saying we need to get the nation building project going. We need to get our resources to other markets. Mark Carney admitted this, which is in direct contrast to his book values. Direct contrast to any appearance he's made at any conference or interview he's done up to this point. Direct contrast. No, we need to build pipelines. Huh? You actively tried to block them here in this country so they could be built elsewhere under Brookfield. So tell me more about what you're going to do here. And he says, well, we need to make sure it happens. We need to start transitioning over, but we need to really make sure we keep things going on the pipeline front and the oil and gas front. Well, and Vashti asked, does this mean Bill C-69 is going to be repealed? Does this mean that you're going to remove the production cap on Alberta? Well, what are you going to do? Well, it's in the question. We can talk about it. And so, Mark Carney sounded a little bit conservative when he's talking about these issues. And so Guilbeault was then asked, how do you feel about this?
Important. Lots of Canadians believe that as well. It was a central element of our platform, and we will make good on our commitments.
The Prime Minister last night on TV seemed to open the door to potentially changing the emissions cap or the IAA to get projects built. What do you think of what he said?
Well, these are important conversations that we will need to have in the coming weeks.
Premier Smith is saying that you're anti-pipeline still. What do you say in response to her concerns just broadly about the cabinet, and how do you deal with national unity? How do you address that right now?
So on pipelines, people should remember that we bought a pipeline, Trans Mountain, and that is only used right now about 40% capacity. So I think before we start talking about building an entire new pipeline, maybe we should maximize the use of existing infrastructure. And the Canadian Energy Regulator, as well as the International Energy Agency, are telling us that probably by 2028, 2029, demand for oil will peak globally, and it will also peak in Canada. So as far as I know, there are no investors right now. There are no companies that are saying that they want to build an east-west pipeline. And as you know, these things are built by companies, not governments.
This is how they hide it. Well, there's no one who wants to invest here. The demand isn't there. It's going to peak in 2028. No one wants to be here. Investors are gone. Well, investors are gone because of what you did as Minister of Environment, my friend. Bill C-69 being one of those things. No one wants to invest here, not because the demand isn't there. It's because you've chased them off because you guys are absolutely nuts. But this is how they go. This has been the whole mantra of the campaign. Forget what's happened in the past. Only look to the future. We got you. Meanwhile, all the decisions they've made in the past are affecting the decisions they're making today. And now they're acting like I had nothing to do with it. There's no demand, they say. There's no demand for this. That's why we shouldn't really be looking to invest. We'll try to maximize our capacity on the current pipelines. Well, even though you've had a hand on decreasing the capacity of those pipelines, but whatever. That is what we're currently at. And the audacity to say there's no demand for it. Well, I don't know. Japan and the US would have something to say about that. Do you remember Japan and the United States coming to a deal worth $1 trillion on LNG? Huh? You remember that? Yeah, it seems like there's quite a bit of demand out there still. So what is the denominator here? Oh, it's the fact that you were an environment minister and you completely chased out any private investment in our oil and gas industry. And now you want to say, in the words of Shaggy, wasn't me. Really? But this is the stuff you have to keep an eye out for. As I said this morning, I'm tired. I'm done watching these guys like a hawk. It's exhausting, but I have to keep doing it because you have to catch them on the doublespeak. You have to catch them in making sure they stay consistent on what they've been talking about. Guilbeault says, I guess we have to look at it now because your hand's being forced to a degree now because you realize how terrible your decisions are and where it's put our country in terms of on the global stage and geopolitics. Yep, your hand's been forced. Trump has forced it. Well, I guess now we got to start talking about pipelines. But let's talk about maximizing our current pipelines before we start building other ones. No. You're done. And again, what Guilbeault said here flies in the face of what Carney's been talking about. Carney says we need to build an east-west pipeline. He's been talking about it. Guilbeault says no east-west pipeline. So what is it? It sounds like a Liberal caucus meeting needs to happen because everyone is saying a different story and Carney has no control over his caucus. He has no control over his cabinet. They're all saying different things. Not looking good. Not looking good. You ever read a headline and think, is that true? Or worse, why is every outlet telling me a different story? Yes, it's no secret that news today is broken. Outrage gets clicks and algorithms feed you what you already believe. It's easy to end up in an echo chamber without even realizing it. That's why I've grown to bring in Ground News as a part of our show prep. It's not just another news app. It actually shows you how different media outlets are covering the same story across the political spectrum. You can literally see the bias of your sources, track how stories are covered in left, center, and right outlets, and get the full picture without the noise. For example, you could have this story right here where Carney has unveiled his cabinet picks. And as you scroll down, you can see all the different headlines and where these news outlets lean. As you see here, Carney's announced his cabinet. Now it's time to get to work by Sarnia News Today is a left-leaning outlet. And you come on down here, the Toronto Sun says Kinsella. Carney taps a whole lot of inexperience in his new cabinet. Again, covering the same story, different headline, and there you can see the bias. Another great feature is their blind spot feed, which highlights stories that are disproportionately covered by one side of the political spectrum, so you never miss out on important stories that aren't reported by your usual news source. I partnered with Ground News because of their mission. Their mission to bring clarity to the news. We've learned that everyone has their bias, including myself, and Ground News allows you to understand the bias and read those stories through that specific lens, giving you a fuller picture and fuller understanding of what is happening in the news. If you want to stop being manipulated by headlines and start seeing the full picture of the news stories that come across your feed, use my link ground.news/elevate or scan the QR code to get 40% off and unlimited access to their Vantage plan. Remember to use my link in the description or the QR code on screen to get the discount for a limited time. Again, that's ground.news/elevate. Now let's get into the story. You have Mélanie Joly, who is now the Minister of Industry, saying, don't worry, folks, I got you. We're going to protect you. We're going to look after Canadian jobs. And, this is what she just had to say.
First and foremost, I'm happy to be the new industry minister. I had the chance this morning to talk with Vic Fideli from Ontario already and to talk about the Honda issue. Our goal is definitely to make sure that we're in solution mode. My goal is before the end of the day to be able to talk to the head of Honda. We know that we're in a trade war with the US. We know there's a lot of uncertainty coming out and unpredictability coming out from the White House. My goal, and that's why I wanted to become the new Minister of the Industry, it is to make sure that notwithstanding all the shenanigans coming out of the White House, we can create economic certainty here in the country, that we can attract investments, that we can create jobs. It's a huge undertaking. And we know right now that this trade war is what? It's an economic threat against our country. Now, what are the consequences of this trade war? Is definitely jobs in Canada. So that's why I wanted to be going from the diplomatic front to the economic front of this war. I'm sorry, I'm not over. And at the same time, being able to be in solution mode, I've already been in contact with the Ontario Economic Committee.
Don't worry, we got your backs. We're going to fight this. You know, there's been such craziness coming out of the White House that we have to work through. Is there craziness? Because it seems like your leader, Mark Carney, was loving his time with Donald Trump the other day. Is there that much craziness? Or are you still trying to drum up that type of fear again still? Mélanie Joly, we're here to protect Canadian jobs. We're going to be here to take care of you. This is the face, auto industry, that's going to save your jobs. How are you feeling about it? You remember a handful of weeks ago before the election, where Honda came out and says, due to Canada's reciprocal tariffs, we are going to be moving production to the States. We can't be doing this here anymore. We're going to be at least moving some of our production to the States. We're going to keep some of it here, but a lot we're moving back down to the south of the border. And well, Anita Nanand, hopped on a phone, said, whoa, I saw these reports, seeing what's been going on. We need to make sure that we keep these jobs here. And so she went on to another tweet posting after this. She said here, I'll be meeting with the CEO of Honda Canada later to discuss this further. And then she went on to post another tweet that says, everything's okay. They're staying here. Life's good. Well, is life good? Honda announced today they are moving their CR-V production from Canada to the US due to tariffs. Honda is also postponing its $11 billion investment in Ontario EV factories due to slowing demand in North America. Oh, I wish I could say I told you so, but here we are, folks. Honda currently splits production of the hugely popular CR-V between Canada and the U.S. However, due to the tariffs imposed by the Trump administration, Honda is shifting CR-V production to the U.S. The automaker's CEO, Toshiro Mibe, made the announcement yesterday during a press conference. He said the decision to move CR-V production from Canada to the U.S. is to minimize the impact of tariffs. Since U.S.-built CR-Vs are made at factories in Greensburg, Indiana, and East Liberty, Ohio, capacity of those plants will need to be increased. The Civic hatchback is built alongside the CR-V at the Indiana plant, and Honda has confirmed that it plans to stop building the 5-door Civic at its factory in Ural, Japan, and shift production to Indiana sometime this summer. The Acura RDX and MDX share the Ohio production facility with the CR-V. Looks like Trump's plan is coming to fruition. He's bringing back jobs to America at the expense of us. Elbows up, they say. We're going to save your jobs. Do you know how much money we've invested into the auto manufacturing industry here? Do you know how much money we've invested into the EV auto sector over the past 5 years between provincial and federal government incentives? It's somewhere to the tune of $36.9 billion over the past 5 years. For what? We keep losing jobs. We keep losing workers. We keep losing our industry here in this country because, surprise, surprise, government incentives and paying people off with taxpayer funds isn't enough to keep private industry here. Wow, that's a shocker. Imagine you actually need a robust economy. Imagine you need a robust capitalistic system to keep private industry here employing your people. Just bribing these companies with taxpayer funds to stick around isn't enough, especially as what that byline says. Honda is postponing its $11 billion investment into Ontario EV factories due to slowing demand in North America. There is no pickup. Imagine that. The thing we've been talking about this whole time, warning you this was going to take place. Here it is. And yet, Canadians still voted for this government and more of it. Elbows up, baby! And even so, Liberal Premier PC Premier Doug Ford said that even he is admitting that Bill C-69 needs to be repealed.
Yesterday, in an interview with Vashi Kapelos, Prime Minister Carney said he's open to making changes at the federal level on projects to make sure that they move forward, and that could include on Bill C-69. Can you talk about what that would mean for nation building and national unity?
Well, it just can't be, thank you for the question, first of all, but it just can't be business as usual. We have to move forward. We got elected on a strong mandate, and we have to compete against, not just around the world, but compete against President Trump and his tariffs. And the only way we can do that is if we get rid of C-69. It doesn't allow all of us across the country to move forward in a rapid speed, and I really appreciate what Prime Minister Carney mentioned yesterday. I personally feel he's going to move quick, but we all have to move quick, all the premiers, to get our economy going.
Even Ford is saying Bill C-69 has got to go. But again, Carney kind of flippantly mentioned it on Vashi's show that he would look at getting rid of it. 69 is going nowhere. Because remember, who was elected? He's not a conservative leader. Carney's not a conservative guy. He is a net zero green wingnut. He's not repealing any carbon tax laws, not repealing any C-69 laws. That completely hinders our industry here. It's not going anywhere. He's keeping it for the long term. So we'll see where this goes. And we'll see what this means for our country. There's some very interesting things that are coming down the pipe. There's some fascinating things we need to talk about of what this could actually mean for Canada's future that me and Reg have been batting around that we want to share with you here shortly. But anyways, have yourselves a good one. I'm out.